Hello! Hi everyone on Facebook and on YouTube. And for those of you who just hopped in from Instagram, welcome. Okay, so give me a minute as I sort everything out. Thank you so much for joining us again in our monthly Facebook Live session. I know a lot of the viewers have feedback to me that they feel based on the kind of viewership that we get doesn't quite tally with the kind of effort that we put in for our Facebook Live sessions. But you know what? I don't really care. I do this for those who want to listen and for those who stand to benefit. And I guess most of the time, I'm not overly concerned about the attendance during the live sessions because I know a lot of you end up watching it as a replay later on. So, right, before I get started, just give me a minute while I just get the admin stuff done. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Right, is the audio all okay? If you guys can hear me, please do me a favor, just put in a comment, right? Or if you have, right, and this is one thing. So the topic for today, as you can see in the ticker over here, right? How to win at MOP. So if you have any friends, family, have a property that is going to hit its MOP this year or next year, please share this video with them. So if you are here live, you can just straight away share it to them as a link. But if you are watching this as a replay, you can also send it to them for them to watch. It's going to give them a fair bit of perspective to how they can really approach this very critical juncture in one's property journey. Because it's at this juncture that really, you are finally out of your lock-in in your HDB. For most of you, as you hit this MOP period, it's also where you are at a very different stage in life as compared to where you were when you took the keys to your HDB, and especially when you applied to that particular HDB a good 8 years, 10 years ago. So, I think without further ado, let's get started. And as we go along, right, you don't have to ask the questions at the end Q&A portion. Any point in time you have a question, you can just put it down in the comments and we will answer them as we go, okay? And let's get started. Alright, so as usual, we always start with some of the recent news, and we're going to share with you some of our takeaways, some of the interesting things that we pick up in this recent news. Since today's topic is a lot about HDBs and ECs, those are the news that I picked up to share with you guys. So this is a very, very recent one, just 4 days back. On Saturday, headline says prices of HDB resale flats rise at slower pace in the first quarter. Some of the key things that I picked up over here. Oops. I'm using a Mac for the stream, which is not something that I use very, very often. So pardon me if the screen looks a bit spastic, but yeah, I think that's okay. Alright, so let's come down to it. So the HDB prices have been going up for 21 quarters. So ever since 21 months, sorry. So ever since COVID arrived on our shores, HDB prices have been going up. I've been getting this question a lot nowadays. Is this sustainable? Is this going to continue? So let's take a look at what some of the experts are talking about. All right. most of them are putting down the drop in volume to, because first quarter is where we have Chinese New Year, and that they put that down to the Chinese New Year festive period for the drop in volumes. And I would agree on that. But over here at the top portion, I'm afraid I can't really highlight to you guys, but near the middle portion where they state, right, middle and lower income Singaporeans who form the bulk of purchasers of HDB flats may be affected by rising cost of living. As people spend more on basic necessities and allocate more budget to other expenses, they may be reluctant to pay top dollar for resale flats. On this point, I would disagree to a large extent, because at the end of the day, for most HDB purchasers, they are very, very needs-based. So it's not like discretionary spending whereby, you know, if they have to spend money on somewhere else, they spend less on. It's not like, you know, going out to eat, going out to fine dining restaurants, those sort of things, right? You have to buy a house, you have to buy a house. And for a lot of the people that we speak to, a lot of the especially first timers in the market, upgraders, they are, especially the upgraders, they are taking advantage of the rising market also to take this chance to upgrade. We are also serving a lot of right sizes as well. A lot of people that are selling, perhaps entering retirement age, already in retirement age, taking this opportunity to sell their HDBs and cash out, those sort of things. And based on the buyers that we have, like most recently we sold a unit at 703 Hougang. You're gonna see that piece of news on our Instagram real soon. We had 17 groups of buyers view in one day, and so that is a surprise to all of us. And then a little bit of a sharing on that as to why I disagree with this is, a lot of them were sharing with us why were they looking at a sort of 35-year-old HDB flat. A lot of them location based. The price that we sold is a good 20 to 30,000 above last transacted, and we had at least I believe it was about 3 to 4 offers from like 17 viewings. So the fact that they came down means, for the viewing, means they were not deterred by the asking price, which was already a lot higher than the last transacted prices. So on that particular point, I would not agree. Of course, lower income, probably like the really low income kind, but that particular flat was about $400,000, and we had 17 groups of people come and view in one day. So the impact of interest rates on these folks, I don't think is very, very high. But on the other side of the coin, right, these rising interest rates, global uncertainties, they are affecting slightly higher quantum, or perhaps the $2 to $4 million purchases, especially if they are for investment purposes. I do see a little bit of slowdown on that portion of purchases, right? Investment purchases, maybe even from the $1.5 million up to the $4 million mark, right? Above the $4 million mark, not much of effect. They are buying it regardless anyway, right? Sort of diversification, those sort of things. Not super affected by the rising interest rates. Okay, so I'm sort of rambling, so let's carry on to the next point. So Mr. Nicholas Mack also stated, right, this due to the drop due to the seasonal factors, right? Chinese New Year. Another reason could be the current low supply of HDB resale flats on the market, and this is true. I'm also serving some buyers in the HDB market, and it's as good as we are like hounding the sellers, because some of the sellers, yes, they put it out, they put the listing out onto the market, not expecting the response to be so strong, and the response is very, very strong, and they are stuck there because they are not incentivized, or they are not comfortable selling the house because there's nothing out there for them to buy. So it feels a lot like there's this traffic jam, and there's somebody that needs to sell to buy, but the house that the guy wants to buy, the seller nothing to buy, then also stuck down there. So it's like a huge traffic jam. And perhaps, right, all it takes is just that little bit of a push on one side, or a bit of an increase in demand on one side, which later on the other article is going to talk about that, to really get everything moving again. And later on, at the end of all these news article sharings, I'm going to share with you what is my thoughts. Where do I predict prices of HDBs and condos headed in the next 1 to 2 years? Okay? Right. The later part of this article, they were talking about how on the higher tier, higher price HDBs, not much is affected, and I did also predict this in my cooling measures video, because the last round, like the December 2020 cooling measures, the government lowered the LTV for HDB purchases, and I mentioned that I expect the slowdown in transactions for the prices around the 400,000 to 600,000 price points, but the above 800,000 and above kind of HDBs will not be impacted much by the cooling measures. And for these people as well, why these people are buying these 800,000 to $1 million HDBs, I would break them down into probably two big groups. One is the empty nesters, people they are retiring, selling either their landed properties or their condominiums, coming down to buy these HDBs, or high income earners for first timers, right? Upgraders, very seldom they want to upgrade into 800,000 to $1 million HDB. Not to say don't have, but I don't see a very big group of them. Most of them are also first timers. They were considering condos or HDBs. So on that note, right, the HDB at the end of the day still represent a cheaper alternative to their condos, and that was the reason why they go for those. And hence, in terms of the cooling measures, they don't really affect these two groups of people. They can well afford it. Rising interest rates also will not really impact these groups of people. Maybe a little bit for the first timers, but not quite, right? In my honest opinion. Okay, so this is one of the articles, and we'll go to the next one. Let's try to go to the next one. Can I go to the next one? Okay. Left, right. Okay. Hold on. Yeah, okay. We got it. Right. So this is the other article. HDB resale volumes recover in March as prices rises for 21 straight months, and it's in this particular article that they did share one point about a 30,000 expected MOP units that is coming up into the market to supplement the demand side of things. Because how I see things coming along for the HDB market is that because of all the supply chain issues, still the manpower issues that's affecting the construction sector, material cost stuff affecting the construction sector, the HDB, and I've mentioned this many times before in all my previous videos, HDB first has to have their BTO time frame, their BTO pipeline done properly, being brought back to its 2 to 3 years building period in order for HDB prices to correct themselves to where HDB originally intends for them to be, which is on a stable plane, right? Does HDB want, or do you think it's beneficial for HDB and for the government as a whole to see prices go up 21 straight months? The answer is no. They hope that the prices gently go up, not at this kind of pace. But they can't do much about this is because they cannot offer an alternative to the market in terms of the BTOs, because they are limited by the manpower issues, they are limited by the material issues that is plaguing the entire market, not just the HDB market. So they got to sort that out first, and then prices will correct itself. Because as the first timers, once they have the option to go for a 2-year BTO, wait 2 or 3 years can collect keys, they definitely rather go for that option, because a lot of them do understand that going for the resale HDB option will not represent a lot of gains for them. They understand that, they do know that, but they are left with little to no choice, because they don't want to wait. They can't wait for 6 years to collect keys for their BTOs in today's market. So this is a better alternative for them, and they are sort of looking to sort of lower the kind of losses that they will potentially make when buying those resale flats. But that's not really the topic of today's discussion. So let's carry on. So that's my take for where I predict HDB prices to go. Until the government sorts out the construction timeline for BTO flats, I do expect HDB prices to continue on this upward trend. Will new cooling measures come? You never know. If it continues on this trend, probably maybe within the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, we may see another cooling measure coming for the HDB market if volumes and prices continue to go up. For private, the volumes have tapered off a little bit, and for that, I do not expect the government to intervene on that anytime soon. The increase in interest rates sort of acts as a external pressure onto the market to hold the market back for the private residential. So for private residential, I don't think there will be any cooling measures yet for anytime soon lah. Alright, then the next point. So today we are talking about HDB and ECs. And so this is a really nice, really good article for ECs, right? Market for new ECs, a bright spot after cooling measures. I'm just going to zoom into the graphic, because I think that's something that is the most interesting part about the whole article already lah. So the top part is talking about the gap between median prices of new ECs and suburban private condos, right? That gap is widening. So it used to be in 2019 a 30% gap between the private new condos in the OCR and the new ECs. 1,100 PSF for new ECs, 1,400. But with the new condos in the OCR now hitting 1,600 PSF, and that is excluding the upcoming Ang Mo Kio launches, the upcoming Tanah Merah launches. So those launches will then pull this data point up even more and widening this gap even more, maybe even hitting 40%. ECs are now still hovering at about 1,175 PSF. So what does this tell us? What does this tell me? What's my takeaway on this particular graphic? Number one, I still believe ECs are pretty much a confirmed make money option. So as a new first timer, ECs is still a very, very good option to go for, provided you can live with the kind of locations that they are offering. Number two, why I believe ECs is something first timers should really, really think about in this market is because ECs, they have a rule that they have to complete their foundations before putting the units up for sale, which means any EC launch today, you will expect to collect your keys in 2.5 years times tops, right? Any other subsidized flat, the BTOs are asking you to wait 5 years. So if you don't want to wait so long, I guess a really good alternative is to go and try for all these new ECs. But I think one of the issues that is affecting ECs today is really the mortgage servicing ratio. So the the first timers with the 30% MSR, they are finding it very, very hard to loan up to 75% of the purchase price for these new ECs, and a lot of them will require some financial help from the parents. So if you are a first timer, right, which probably not so many will be listening, because most of them listening are already owning a HDB that's waiting for MOP, or EC that's MOP. But if you have a friend, you have a family member who is a first timer, and considering between resale HDB, HDB BTO or private, do remind them that EC is still an option. It's quite, I feel it's quite a forgotten market, because there used to be a lot of ECs, but now, you know, every year they average maybe 1 or 2 EC launches, and it may be an idea that people forget, or people just eliminate them altogether because of the location. Which brings me to my next point. Take a look at the kind of profits people make by investing in an EC. Why do I use the word investing? Because I had friends, quite a many friends, that I advised to go for EC in the 2017. So they are hitting their MOP this year and next year, those folks in Canberra. So the discussion I had with them then is still a discussion that I have today, which is, wow, the EC location cannot, very, very far. So my main point to them at that juncture was like, you either go for a resale HDB and potentially lose money. I'm not going to say you sure lose money. At that point in time, without COVID, had they entered, they would have lost money based on the market trends. It's only because COVID came and sort of helped save the HDB market, which is something else also I have talked about quite a bit. I think the HDB have a lot to thank for what has happened to us in the last 2 years. So the point that I wanted to share is that, especially if you're a first timer or even if you're an upgrader, okay, another good point, especially for upgraders, for ECs, is the fact that you can continue to hold your HDB. If you have that 25% plus stamp duty down payment set aside, you can buy the EC first without selling your HDB. Wait until the EC is completed, then move directly inside the EC, and that will save you a lot on rentals, yeah, and that will allow you to make a back-to-back move into a property that has traditionally shown to 100% make money. Okay, so I feel as upgrader, so a lot of you are hitting your MOP. This is also something that you can think about, albeit you have to pay resale levy, those sort of things. So all of those options I will talk about later on. But for this, it's, ECs guaranteed to make money, and in this market with the OCR new prices really pushing the next limit, ECs still somewhat suppressed. Really, really good option. Do not eliminate this option just simply because of the location, or simply because you don't want to approach your parents for some financial help. I think they are more than happy to help you if it's, to give you a proper good head start on your property journey. And why I'm saying this is because I also have a lot of first timers who insist that they don't want to approach their parents for help, and I respect them for that. But do just put things into perspective and make sure you explore out your options and sort of visualize where you'll be 5, 6, 10 years down the road based on the different options that you pick. Make sure you know what to expect. Right, at the end of the day, whichever decision you make, at the very least, you have done the necessary due diligence of going through those options. And speaking about that, right, let's jump to the topic proper, which is the MOP topic for today. Right, how do you win at MOP? And so these are some of the topics that we will be covering. First is I'm going to share with you, right, most of you who, especially those who continue to watch us or who follow us, know how much we like data, and data is what you're going to get, and I'm going to share with you data for ECs that hit his MOP, right, what happened to the prices after that, right, HDBs that hit their MOP, what happened to the prices after that? Is there any conclusive conclusion? That's correct, right? Conclusive conclusion, right? I think that's correct. Conclusive conclusion that we can take out of this whole thing, right? Are we able to time? Is there sort of a sweet spot time that we can get in terms of selling your house at MOP? Okay, we're going to find out, right, based on data that we gathered. And importantly, I want to also share some of the case studies of what some of our clients did. And while we will be sharing some of the results that they have yielded by taking different steps, the main reason why I wanted to share these case studies is because I want the listeners to have sort of a perspective and also to understand how we plan out this journey at MOP, right? The thought process that went behind planning for all these routes, right? A lot of people will just share, this is the start point and that is the end point, and what's the result that come about, right? But I personally feel that what is most beneficial is to guide you to think, right? To teach you how to think and how to fish, right? And so that next time you can, at least you have more confidence to maneuver around the property market on your own instead of just taking our word for it, taking somebody else's word for it. Okay, and then some of the common concerns, right, on the minds of people that are hitting their MOP, homeowners that are hitting MOP, some of the tricks, some of the suggestions of what you can do to achieve clarity during this point in time. And lastly, what makes a solid property plan, so you can go ahead and try and formulate a plan in your head and understand what are the different alternatives and options available to you. So what I did to try and figure out if there is such a thing as a sweet spot time, a best time to sell your EC when it hits its MOP, because we have quite a number of ECs hitting their MOP this year. So take a look. I listed down, and I chose these ECs because of their varied MOP periods as well as their location. We have Privé at Punggol, we have Esperina Residences at Buangkok MRT, we have the Canopy in Yishun, up at Tampines, Blossom Residences, Watercolors, Blossom Residences is in Choa Chu Kang, Watercolors in Pasir Ris, Tampines Trillion in Tampines. It's like the Tampines condos, they will say that they are in Tampines. The rest of the condo, you don't say Privé at Punggol. And just an interesting observation, right? Next, the Rainforest, which is in Choa Chu Kang, with Twin Waterfalls in Punggol and One Canberra in Sembawang. So I picked out all this and I end with those that MOP in September 2020, because then at least that gives us a bit of time to see sort of the price trend movements lah. So I picked the PSF on MOP. So these are the average PSFs of the transactions done in the month plus minus of the month of MOP. Okay, and on average, right, you see them increasing in terms of percentage. I pardon if they look a bit squashed because we put this over from PowerPoint, and this is on another one, just so that you can have this half screen now. So as you can see, Privé up 16% from its MOP, right? Esperina 15%, Canopy 7%, up at Tampines 16%, Blossom 26%, outperforming everyone else, right? It's the best performing one. Watercolors 14%, Tampines Trillion 21%, not too shabby. And I did share before how much I like Tampines Trillion. The Rainforest, Twin Waterfalls 17, 16. So you see they average out to about 16, 15%, right? We have a good 3/4 of them at 15, 16, 17%, with some outliers like Blossom and Trillion at 21% and Canopy at 7%. So what is my conclusion? Or maybe you want to share with me what is your conclusion on all of this. Could let us know in the chats, right? Put your thoughts in the comments below. What's the conclusion that you have? Or what is maybe some of the questions you have after looking at this table?
Right click fit.
Right click on what?
The PDF.
Okay.
Fit.
Right click.
Can.
Cannot. Hold on.
Use 2 fingers. Press
Fit. Oh. okay. Where's that?
Is it there?
Zoom out. Actual size or?
Actual size.
Okay.
Wait, never mind.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. Okay. So let me know your thoughts. All right. What do you think? Right. If any one of you are in these ECs, also let me know. Is this what you have observed, or is this what you expect it to be? So end of the day, right? My conclusion is that, as with all private properties, right? So for private properties, the minute they TOP, they enter into the resale market. For ECs, when they hit MOP, they enter into the resale market. When properties enter into the resale market, is because the main reason is because they have very different price setters. Before a property TOPs, or before a property is fully sold, there's only one price setter, the developer, and the developer can control the prices because the developer has 100 units, 1,000 units. They can control the prices. But once it goes into the resale market, every owner only control one price, the price of their own unit. And every owner have different objectives on why and how they want to sell their house, right? So, for example, your neighbor can sell at 100,000 cheaper than you, and especially for ECs, they have all made so much money. We see, and on average, this is the difference from MOP till today. So pre-V 2018 till today is 16% increase. I haven't even calculated how much they make from day one. Because those add together is a huge sum of money. So they are, like I said, they already sitting on a huge profit. They can afford to sell at a good 50k cheaper than you if they already see something interesting that they want to go for. And there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So what does that mean? That means in the long term, in the long run, the prices will follow the general market price trends. They will not outperform the market price trends, except for properties that undergo transformation, or if they land in an area of significant transformation. And this is where I see in Westmere. So maybe I can jump into HProp and share with you guys a little bit something quite interesting. Okay, so Westmere is one of the older ECs. So one of the older ECs, one of the very first few ECs lah. And over here you can see all the ECs that's available or that has been built. And I'm just going to pick out the first four, right? Eastvale, Westmere, Chesterville, and Sime Green. Plot it out together for you to take a look. Okay? So we are starting there, we are going all the way to this year. We have Westmere, we have Sime Green. Why? Click the fourth one.
Don't click the fourth.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Eastvale, and where's the last one? The last one is Chesterville. Okay, Chesterville. Right, and let's take a look at the price trends for these four first generation ECs and see how they perform. So as you can see over here, they generally follow the price trends of the market as a whole. But you do see Westmere having started off at about the same PSF as everyone else, plus minus, thereabouts the 400 PSF range, because they were all launched around the same time. But over to today, at one stage, you can see Westmere being close to 900, right? 880 PSF, when Chesterville is at 600, Eastvale is at 700, the rest of them hovering at 600 to 700, and Westmere touching 900. Yeah, so what happened in Westmere? Westmere is located near Boon Lay MRT. I believe they were a significant beneficiary of the whole Jurong Lake District transformation lah. Right, but fast forward to today, the PSF has more or less caught up with the rest of them, has caught up to the 900 PSF price point. I believe it has reached a point where least decay is a concern already, so it's going to be tough for Westmere to really break through perhaps to the 1100 PSF price point, unless right there's news of en bloc coming into play, which is where I will probably see prices headed upwards lah. So which is why I landed on my conclusion, right, that over the long term, transformation and market forces, pardon the typo, forces have the most impact on prices. There is no sweet spot time to sell your EC, right? You just have to understand the market fundamentals, the fundamentals of how the resale market works. But since I'm on this point, perhaps I could share with you guys also a little case study, right? On top of this one bonus on top of the existing 3 case studies that I've already prepared for you guys. So we just closed the deal in the Vales, which is a EC that's sitting is MOP today. One of the issues that's facing the owners at the Vales, it's the fact that because before MOP there's very little transactions, or if not a lot of the transactions were, I call them encumbered transactions, due to the fact that the buyers have to meet the same eligibility criteria as if you were buying a brand new EC, hence suppressing the prices, right? But into today, once you go past the MOP, the buyers that buy those particular units are not subjected to the restrictions, and also the banks will utilize TDSR instead of MSR to evaluate their loans, hence the fact why every time EC hits MOP we always see a sharp spike in prices, because it goes from encumbered to more or less unencumbered, right? The only encumbrance left is that foreigners cannot buy. Other than that, there's basically no other encumbrances for EC that crosses their 5-year MOP point. But the sellers still get challenged, right? They still have a challenge because the valuations are all stuck at this point, pre-MOP point, and they are looking to sell at closer to market, and a lot of them are actually below market already, in my personal opinion. So me and my buyers, we got a unit at the Vales 3 Premium at 1.3 million, right? So is that a lot of money if you take a look at how much the sellers bought at? Yes, right, they did make quite a fair bit of profit, but is that a really good deal in the market as a whole today? I believe it's a fantastic deal in the market, right? At 1.3 million to buy a 3-bedroom premium above 1,000 square feet, you can rent out immediately and get close to $4,000 in rental. So that was what we landed on for my clients. I told them I feel that that's a pretty good deal, but one of the challenges we faced was valuations. The banks initially were only willing to value that unit at $1.2 million based on what was transacted in the pre-MOP market. But you know, we managed to have that sorted out. And I had this conversation with my buyers, as in, you know, if I were to flip around, if I were to, you know, change roles, right, and represent the sellers, what would I do? I did actually share with them that I will tell my sellers to not wait too long, and also it kind of depends on what kind of units you are holding on to. Like if you're holding on to a unit with a premium facing, and you believe that you're able to charge a premium, I would actually ask them to maybe hold back, but not too long, perhaps maybe a month or so, just to see the caveats come in, and also to see the supply come down. Because a lot of people are very kanchong to sell at MOP because they already, I don't know whether this can go on you. Our term, Singaporean term, backside itchy lah, already go do their research for 2 years already. They already aim what they want to buy. And MOP is like, you know, that's the date, let's go. So, you know, if you are, or you can afford to be a little bit more patient, I would highly recommend so, right? So that at least the valuations can come up. You won't face that issue when the buyers come to you and say, yes, I know your prices is like that, and I agree with your prices, but the valuations are only like that, and I can't do it. And that's the issue. Valuations aside, the kind of prices is I feel is very, very good for buyers in the market today. So highly recommend, if you are watching, to also consider resale ECs as part of your purchase. And my buyers are buying that unit as an investment. Again, not the main topic for this session, so I won't dive too much into that. Okay, too much into that lah. But if you are curious to understand why, you can just drop me a text, drop us a DM, drop us a message. We'll come back to you, and we'll share with you a little bit more on that, why we are so bullish about that particular development or at that particular type of product. Right? So okay, back to the point. Conclusion: no sweet spot, time to sell. But if you can afford to wait, maybe just wait 1 month for the caveats to come in. But then again, that's not a one-size-fits-all answer. It depends on what kind of unit you own as well. It depends on the supply dynamics within the development. What kind of, at the end of the day, what kind of unit you own. You have to also sort of strategize a little bit, see who are the other people selling. Would they help you actually bring your price up? Or would they end up just taking away the limited demand within or looking at that particular development? That's a very, very important question to ask yourself if you are an EC owner hitting your MOP. Okay? Next up, HDB MOP. And for us to take a look at that and sort of try and derive a conclusion, I've used Pongo, okay? And I picked up several clusters to illustrate the point. And why did I choose Pongo is because they have MOPs every other month, every other year. So very, very easy for me to pick up some case studies. So I start first from clusters that MOP recently, all the way to clusters that MOP in 2012, right, before the cooling measures came about. And then after that we piece them all together and to see if we have some sort of a conclusion. And this is where maybe we can do this exercise together, and you can see whether or not you can spot some of the trends. So Waterway Brooks MOP last year, right, we sold a unit there. It's perhaps our best performing video still on our channel. Prices from MOP up till today have increased. Okay, if you can see the general trend, it is going upwards. Pongo Waves MOP 2018. Okay, as you can see, it sort of like tapered off slightly, or maybe even dipped slightly between 2018. But again, once you hit the pandemic period, the COVID period, it started to move upwards. Pongo Sapphire MOP a bit earlier, 2016, for this level, right straight, and then slowly pick up in the last 2 years, together with the rest of the market. Coriolanus MOP in 2014, and here similarly you could see a general trend of it sort of flat / downwards, and then in the last 2 years pick up. And as the further and further back you go, the more drastic the trend, and the more obvious a trend start to appear. And who can give me the right answer on what kind of trend line do you see, or what kind of trend line does this look like? So you see this one, it picked up to MOP at around the 2012 mark, and then it just went under until thankfully over the last 2 years, I think the owners of Sandal have the pandemic to thank for their prices recovering. Okay, so picked up in the last 2 years. And then last one is Edgedale Green, that MOP in 2011, right? And this one is also very interesting. It sort of saw prices coming up. So those that actually waited for maybe half a year after, or maybe 1 month after as a matter of fact, fetch a higher price. But if they miss that point, then the prices just took a nosedive downwards, and like everyone else, picked up in the last 2 years. But now, the critical question to ask ourselves is, what was the reason HDB prices picked up in the last 2 years? Right? For those of you who follow, you know my answer to that. But those of you who don't, who are joining us for the first time, the last 2 years, had the pandemic not happened, would the prices, do I think the prices would have picked up? My answer is no, a hard no, okay, because HDB supply is still very, very strong. We have 30,000 HDB sitting is MOP this year, right? And if with especially in an area like Punggol, which I believe we should have about maybe 5,000 MOP units a year, right? Don't quote me, it's just an estimate or something that is at the back of my head. I think I have that number somewhere. 5,000 units hitting its MOP. Where would the demand mainly be flowing to, right? Usually to the MOP units. Would there still be people buying such units? Yes, there will. But will there be as many people buying these units if, let's say, you just look at the market as a whole? You look at the market as a whole, how the demand is segregated, right? We have upgraders, right? The people that just want to change HDB to HDB 4 room to 5 room, 3 room to 4 room, right? We have those people. We have first timers, right? And we have, as a matter of fact, mainly these two groups of people. First timers, generally, what kind of options do they have? They can either buy BTO, they can buy resale, right? So today they cannot really buy BTO because they don't want to wait 6 years, which is why they come into the resale market. The resale is already their second choice. And when they come into the resale market, they know that they potentially might lose money. And what is that? Is the right word conventional wisdom? Probably. Conventional wisdom is to then buy a slightly younger HDB so that you don't get killed by lease decay. So which ones will they pick? They probably will pick the newly MOP ones because they offer a longer remaining lease. So then these particular units will then fall really a lot in terms of the priority to the bottom of the priority list, right? But today they are quite, their prices have picked up quite a bit, mainly because first of all, everybody, the price have come up. So no choice, these guys also, the owners also not silly, they also will then raise their prices. So in the absence of all these extraordinary circumstances, I do not think the prices will have come up. So is it right to assume prices will continue to go in this direction? I've answered that at the start of the video. If you've joined us, my answer is no. Okay. And so yes, a very quick crash course on HDB fundamentals and where do I see HDB prices going. Right, and if you notice over in the long term, as you zoom out, notice how similar Edgedale Green, if you plug this right and then you go over here, it just trends very, very nicely together with the general HDB price trends. Or even the other ones that you see, they follow more or less exactly the same as all the others. So you see the more recent ones, they look like at MOP, after that the price go up. It's because they fall within this cycle. At MOP, then the price go up, right? The cycle over here. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is prices follow general HDB price trends. Understandably so. Why? Same thing in the resale market. There's a lot of people calling the shots, and a lot of people with different objectives when selling their houses. So it's very hard to have any sort of price control for houses unless we see what we see today as a whole, the entire market goes upwards. It will revert back to the old traditional, the old kind of trends, I feel, once the government sorts out all these construction issues and the BTO supply comes back online, coupled with all the MOP supply coming into the market. We will I predict with high certainty that we will go back towards the 16 to 19 kind of price trends, which is very level. Yeah, very, very level. And so when prices are level, right, is it a right time to sell early? To be very honest, if we take out what happened in the last 2 years, the conclusion is you basically should try and sell as early as you can in terms of when you hit its MOP lah, based on the data, right? For example, right, people that hit their MOP pre 2020 long, we have our Pongo waves. You see, Pongo waves, you MOP here, you wait, you don't stand to benefit at all. Pongo Sapphire, MOP over here, if you wait, you don't stand to benefit at all, excluding what happened in the last 2 years, right? The scariest is people like Sundial, right? If they MOP, as they waited, their prices crashed. A good, quite scary. It came from 550 PSF all the way down to 350 PSF. Wow, that is a good close to 40% decrease in PSF. Quite scary. Yeah, so that's why I think the Sundial and Coral and Edgedale Green people are super duper thankful for what happened in the last 2 years. So conclusion, right? Again, while there's no sweet spot time to sell, over in the long term, it will just trend together with all the other HDB prices. And taking out what happened in the last 2 years, the data points to the fact that you should sell as soon as you can when the property hits MOP. Will it face the same issue as what I mentioned earlier in terms of valuation? The answer is yes, but the trouble here is that HDB valuations are a huge black box. Till today, none of us in the market can figure out how HDB do valuation. All the more, reach this point in time, right, all us agents are even more confused because there are properties that none of us expect the valuations to match, and they match. And there are properties whereby we expect valuations to match, in the end the valuation come out, don't match. And so we are all confused. Nobody knows how they do it. Yes, they hire like professional valuers and things like that, but they keep this thing in a black box. And for those of you who have followed us from long time ago, I call this black box the government's invisible hand with how they control HDB prices, right? Because you have to buy already, seller, buyer agree on a price, and then go to valuation. Yes, the HDB will send some dude down to your house to value the house, but after that, the result comes out in on your computer screen, and nobody knows how that was derived. And so yeah, right, will it face the same issue? Yes. Is there a way around it? Will waiting 6 months with new valuations, with new transactions coming up, help you with the valuation? I don't know. It's not a given, right? So which is why, don't try to time the market, right? Instead, what can you do? This is where I jump into case studies to share with you what some of my clients, what we have done, what's the result that come out of it, and more importantly, how do we go about reaching that conclusion? What's the kind of thought process that we have gone through in our heads? So if you are very lucky, you are in sort of a similar situation as them, you can adopt this for your own use. So case study number 1, right? This is a HDB MOP, right? Mr. and Mrs. Tan, they have 2 kids, quite young. I believe it was maybe 1 year old and 3 years old. Yeah. Combined income approximately about $12,000. They own a Pongo BTO HDB 4-room at 267A Pongo Walk. So they sold that at MOP in 2017 at $503,000, and they purchased a Twin Waterfalls unit, right, pre-MOP, 4-bedroom at $1 million. So all of you here today will probably say, wow, that one very cheap. But in 2017, it was not such a clear-cut move as what we can see today. Of course, in retrospect, it always seems very clear-cut, right? And in the property market, in retrospect, it always looks cheaper, right? But it wasn't at that point in time, okay? So this are the results, right? Had they held on till today, okay, so today a higher floor unit, I tried to pick up an apple to apple comparison, is super small, so I don't think you need to bother trying to see it. I'm putting it there just so I hope you believe me in what I say. So they sold in December 2017 at 500,000, right? In November 2021, a unit of the same size, maybe slightly higher floor, was sold for 595,000. So the price differential, 92,000, which is why I say over there, had they held on to today, they will profit $92,000. Okay, but they have actually already moved on from their Twin Waterfalls unit, yielding a profit over here, as you can see, of $329,999 in profit. And so that is a good 3 times more than 3 times more the kind of profit that they would have made, assuming they held on to the property, right? Then you're going to add on to the whole point of assuming that this whole last 2 years didn't happen. Their prices basically would have been level, not making any money from holding on to their HDB and missing out on the opportunity of profiteering from this Twin Waterfalls 4-bedroom move. Okay, but results aside, right? What is the key takeaway for this particular case study? So of course, they managed to achieve the highest annualized ROI in the entire development, because the rest of them had to hold for 8 years. For them, if you buy a pre-MOP EC, right, you don't have to have a full 5-year MOP. You enjoy the same MOP as everyone else. But what you do have is seller's stamp duty, so they held for 3 years, and which is why they enjoyed a 9.1% unleveraged return on investment annualized. 9.1%. There's nothing much else in the market that can beat this kind of ROI. Super ROI, right? But I will term this as an opportunistic purchase, because just nice at MOP they were able to jump in. Number one, number two, they're still eligible to buy that sort of, how do I term it, that pre-MOP sale unit lah, special approval pre-MOP sale unit, right? So they did ask me, they were a bit uncertain. I said it's an absolute no-brainer at $1 million 4-bedroom, because even at that point in time in 2017, I wouldn't really say that I was so certain about this whole big development or big unit OCR outperforming the market, right? I wouldn't admit that I was that confident as I am today. But 1 million 4 bedrooms, I thought it was a no-brainer. Yeah, and so we went for it. And the next thing is that you focus on the exit and not the entry, because at $1 million they still had to pay, I believe it was a good $150,000 profit to the first owner. Did that affect them? Yes, they did, right? Because I think in today's market, a lot of us have been psyched to think that, you have to be the very, very first owner to make money. While yes, right, it's good to have, but does it mean you pay the first owner some profits, you will not yield any profits? The answer is no, right? You have to be strategic about it, and you have to put it in and, as part of your options, and analyze all your options in totality before just making that decision. And that's one point that perhaps I could take this opportunity to share with our viewers, right, our followers. I think a lot of people are overly focused in being like the first timer in this market, and having lost sight of the fact that there are good deals out there in the resale market, and you can afford to pay the first owners a little bit of profit if you know what you're doing, if you have the exit planned out properly. Okay, so just keep your options open. Don't be overly focused in being the first timer. That is not the only way to go about doing it. All right, so in the end, we managed, right, after sitting down, exploring the options, achieve a back-to-back move, so they did not have to spend any money on rental. And that's also another point to note, to further add in that just quite how amazing this full profit is. Because if this kind of profit is coming from a new launch, for example, well, yes, right, you may say, oh yeah, that's really not bad. But if you are a straight up upgrader into that unit, you would have had to factor some sort of rental cost, so it would not have been like a 329,000 net profit, right? It would be just a gross profit. So your net profit, if you had to rent for like 2 years, take up probably half of it in terms of the expenses involved. We also managed to do this with a 3 years reserve fund. What does that mean, right? So there was a lot of fear involved, right? So like I said, it's very easy to look in hindsight, yeah, sure, it's no brainer, they definitely will have made money, I would have made that move myself. Very easy to say lah, right? But at that point in time, 12K combined income, they were going from a $500,000 property into a $1 million property, doubling their monthly outlay. Previously, they were very, very comfortable in their HDB. I believe it was close to fully paid already, right? But how we help them put things into perspective, we always start off calculating the budget from reserve funds, right? At how much do you think you need to set aside to feel comfortable to make this move, right? They were not comfortable to increase their cash outlay on the mortgage by so much. So fair enough, right? What we did, keep some amount in CPF so that at any point in time we utilize the CPF extra funds to pay off the mortgage. In order to try and keep the cash outlay low, so we don't use so much CPF upfront in terms of the down payment, because a lot of people, especially upgraders, so this is perhaps another point that I could share with people that are hitting their MOP now, because you are likely to be sitting on a lot of profits and also a lot of CPF, and you might be, and especially because we are entering a high interest rate environment, because I get this question a lot. Should I pay down the property in order to lower my interest expense, in order to lower the amount of loan I'm taking? My answer is no. Not if you are young, not if you are in your 30s or even 40s, right? I'd rather you keep that extra amounts in your CPF, because come a rainy day, you still have to pay your mortgage. Be it a mortgage of $1 million or a mortgage of $800,000, you still have to pay your mortgage. And I'd rather you have that rainy day fund versus paying down and then lowering your monthly mortgage by $400. That $400 will count for nothing if you end up losing your job. If end up something happens, you still are liable for the rest of the mortgage. Right? Just a word of advice, especially for those of you who are hitting MOP and sitting on profits and thinking, what should you do or how should you structure your purchase, your finances for the purchase. Okay? Next.
Has a question on the case study.
Okay.
So, they didn't pay levy for CPF grants for the BTO flat. This question.
Yes, they did. So if you sell they had to pay resale levy for this, because the Twin Waterfalls pre-MOP EC is considered a subsidized house. So first BTO is considered subsidized. Then when you buy a EC that is hitting its pre-MOP, considered subsidized also, so there's some resale levy to be paid. So of course this profit is gross profit, so if you really want to be accurate, yes, you can take away some of the resale levy involved over there, like $45,000 because they are four room flat. Still excellent profits taken. I hope I answered your question. YK, right?
Yeah.
YK.
He commented that's a 40K levy then.
Yeah, correct. 40, 45? I believe it's 45. Yeah. Okay. Still very, very good lah. Still very, very good. Yeah, you will still beat out like any other purchases. Okay. But of course, that, which I say that is opportunistic lah, but you only get to be able to take advantage of those opportunities if you got think and you got plan how to take action, right? Because if not, by the time the opportunity come about and then you come and start to plan, you're never going to catch those those opportunities, right? Which is why, you know, today's session is not so much about saying that you must sell on MOP or you don't sell on the MOP, but think, plan, right? And so now come case study number 2, another HDB MOP case, Mr. and Mrs. Lim, 3 kids, okay? I think it was at that point in time, primary 5, primary 3, and like a newborn, okay? Dual income, combined salary of approximately 20,000, so very, very comfortable for them, right? They own a HDB BTO at 213A Punggol Walk, right? That one is a 5-room instead. So not the same cluster lah, but same road also called Punggol Walk. Their original intention was simply to upgrade to a condo, but continue to stay within Punggol. And so this is why I have that saying that I always say, where HDB upgraders, they have a sort of stickiness to the area because the whole family is now in that area, albeit Punggol, right? Last time we keep saying Punggol, very, very ulu, but their parents started to shift closer to help look after the grandkids, so their family started to form over there. Their whole life starts to revolve around there. So while they can well afford to upgrade to a better location, they don't want, and they chose to upgrade within Punggol. So which is why I say the condos within the OCR, and especially the condos in the vicinity of a lot of HDB units, would tend to do well in terms of capital appreciation. How well, later on you take a look, okay? So they sold at MOP. I didn't put at what price. Later on I got the price lah. They sold at $580,000, okay, at MOP. And they purchased a Park Central's 4-bedroom, which is also in Punggol, okay? And for those of you who are familiar with Punggol, familiar with 4-bedroom units in Punggol, now you look at that price, super duper cheap. I didn't manage to do a quick check because I was rushing for the content today. It's super hard to buy a 4-bedroom in Punggol now. There's like literally no supply, and I believe the cheapest 4-bedroom you're going to be able to get probably is like $1.5 to $1.6 million already in Punggol, assuming you can even get one. So they then purchased, right? Why I chose this, what's the difference between this one versus the first case study, is that they did the very traditional. So this is a very traditional sell one, buy two, buy one for own stay, and got a second one for investment, right? A 2-bed, 2-bath unit at Florence Residences at $980,000. So where do they stand today? So I think it's a bit small, but I think you can see. So we are this guy over here, October 2018, we sold it for $580,000, but somehow or other, had they even held on to today, the prices are still hovering around there, but maybe go up 20,000, right? Nobody has managed to hit 600,000 yet, but maybe we can. So I'm going to assume if we hold today, we're going to achieve a $20,000 profit. But instead of other than focusing here, why I list out this whole chunk, you see prices actually did dip after 2018 to a similar unit over here, 13 to 15 floor, sold at $555,000. So that's a decrease of $25,000. Yeah, $25,000 drop in price. So this is how I put things into perspective. Had they stayed put, right, they would probably have gained like $20,000. Maybe we can sell today because of the market at 600,000, right? But by choosing to move Park Centrals, right, even though our original intention for that unit was not really to make money, but more so to keep them within Punggol in a location that they want, because of family, kids' school, and whatnot. We got that, and thankfully the price have came up, right? Valuation today is 1.58, but I'm very, very confident we'll easily fetch 1.6, maybe even 1.65, because there's no supply of 4-bedroom units within walking distance to the MRT. So this is like a conservative kind of profit that I'm putting it in. And for Florence, right, I've also put in the perspective over here. We are on the top right hand corner, purchased at $980,000. Take a look at the bottom left hand corner, a similar size unit that was purchased in May last year for $1.14 million, and that represents a paper gain of $160,000. So you add those two together, we are sitting on a $270,000 gain by taking action just 3 years back. So what's the key takeaway, right? Other than the fact that they made a really good chunk of change, this is a classic sell one buy two unit, right? For the first purchase, we focused on finding a unit that is comfortable for them. Yeah, for their own stay, you have to lock in the fundamental need first, right? Which is a roof over your head in the location that you want. So we determined that, because at that point in time, we actually have, because with $20,000 disposable income, combined income, we had many options. We could have gone for a new launch, 4 or 5 bedroom, yeah, and just go and focus on that. In the end, they decided that they are more comfortable just purchasing one. They didn't really have a lot of intentions for that to make a lot of money. So we entered into Park Central's eyes wide open, saying that we focus to buy one that's fundamentally strong in an area of high demand, low supply, good proximity to the MRT, so in the future we have no problems selling, right? Because no choice, we had to continue staying in that area, because even at that point in time, looking for a 4 bedroom within the walking distance to the MRT was super duper hard. So can you imagine today? Gonna be crazy. But no choice, we had to go for that. Going to it eyes wide open. This one not meant to make money. If can make money, good. If not, we buy fundamentally strong so that we don't lose money. And then we have the second name to go and buy a new launch, and we use that one to make money instead. And again, right, we started off with, because it's sell one buy two, the way I say it sounds very simple, but is it scary? It's super duper scary, especially for somebody that again is starting or is currently only servicing a mortgage for a $580,000 HDB, of which they probably only have bought it at $300,000-$400,000, probably 3/4 of the way paid off already, to then take up a mortgage of 1.4 plus 900,000. So that's going to bring us close to, in excess of $2.5 million already. It's a huge jump. So how do you, make yourself feel safe, right? Give you some confidence to make this move. It's to assure you that if anything happens, you have a reserve fund, you have a piggy bank to go to help you service that. So with the way we structured everything, we managed to still carve out, a 20 months reserve period. So in the end, in the event anything happen, we can tap off that reserve funds. Why we go for the new launch is also because the new launch repayment is not so high. Yeah, at that point in time, their repayment was like a couple of $100 because it was just newly built. So they had a lot of options at that point in time. Right, we were also exploring, do we then just go straight to a landed property at that point in time? But in the end, we sort of figured like the kind of landed property that we wanted to go for wasn't that fantastic. So we came to a decision. Okay, let's just do this. This is we were very sure that this is only an interim step for us to go towards our next goal. So every time we move our clients, we agree together. Okay, this is not the last step. This is just the interim. We have 2 more steps moving forward. We have the next steps moving forward, and then everything we enter eyes wide open. We have already considered all options available before we enter. And today, right, we are sitting on so many options. Option number 1, we can sell Florence and we can roll it into a slightly bigger resale property, or not resale property, investment property, right? Can continue to roll that in terms of the profit. $160,000 in 3 years. Okay, we can liquidate both and purchase that landed property today at a much better price point as opposed to what they could look at in 2 years back. Of course, bearing in mind the fact that you might be saying landed prices also skyrocket lah. But hey, we have made a fair bit of profit as well. We can use that to buffer for the increase. Okay, and on top of that, they still have their investments doing work for them. They have savings for them. So today we are going to sit down and sort of weigh out the options to them now, right? And we have a lot more options than we have just 3 years back, thanks to the move that we have made, right? So another takeaway over here is, if you were to do something like that that's perhaps a little bit more sophisticated, perhaps a little bit more uncomfortable, would that give you more options moving forward? If in the end you realize that, I go through all this trouble, it probably is not going to be, it's not like it's going to offer me a lot more options, then yeah, maybe you just go for the more traditional method or even stay put. Yeah. Right, last case study is a EC MOP, right? So 3 case studies, 2 HDB, 1 EC. This one, Mr. and Mrs. Tan, also 2 kids. Their kids, one also newborn, another one is maybe 1 or 2 years old. So dual income, combined income approximately $16,000. They were owning, and they still own today, right? At Esperina Residences 4-bedroom. Their original intention was to get a larger space because their family was growing. They really do enjoy larger spaces because they grew up in slightly larger houses. But after exploring the options, we landed on the move of just simply decoupling them and using one name to purchase a 1-bedroom at Affinity. So how did that turn out for us today? So original intention was to sell and upgrade to a large resale unit in Canberra, because at that point in time, based on the budget available and for the kind of size that they wanted to go for, we had to go to Canberra for it. And because everything price come up, that would also have made money. They would have made $100,000 over there. But by doing what we did, right, they have gained an additional $220,000 from Esperina, right? How do I derive this? If we go back to the start, you can see the difference between the average PSF over here of Esperina Residences. It's a good 160 PSF increase. Their unit is 1,300 square feet. So that is, and that is also the reason why they are already at 1,300 square feet. If they were to upgrade, they needed to look for something 1,700 square feet, 1,800 square feet. Hence, the fact that we have to land in Canberra lah. Right, so that is how I estimate a paper gain of $220,000. In actual fact, I believe we could easily fetch higher than this because there's just no supply of 4-bedrooms in Singapore at this point in time. So the Affinity gains about $100,000. Of course, Affinity have not hit its TOP yet, but we already have resale transactions of 1-bedroom, sub-sale transactions of 1-bedrooms already hitting the high 1,600s. I believe even there was one at 1,700 PSF. So, we are a lot better off compared to if we had taken that move to Canberra, right? But again, results aside, how did we land on this situation? Or how did we land on this option? Okay, so what are some of the key takeaways? Don't make do. Okay, so this is something you may have heard me say before. I think I said it a lot when I was sharing with you guys about our own property journey. So don't make do, what do I mean by that? I asked them this question: is the Canberra big development your ideal home? Is that really somewhere that you love and you really will enjoy for the next 10, 15 years? The answer I got was no. Then I said, why indeed, why do you want to go over there? Because for my budget, that's the only development that is in my options that I can afford. So I was like, wow, it sounds a lot to me like you're making do, and they sort of agreed. And that's where I was like, please don't make do, let's see if we can find another way about it. And after going through all the many options, we in the end we realized that hey, they could continue staying in their current house. So we realized, right, through exploring the options together, that additional space, that 1,300 to 1,700 square feet, was it a need or a want? It was a want, which is why in the end, we came to a conclusion that we could continue to stay in Esperina residences. Yeah. Also thanks to, in a way, also helped by the fact that there was Sengkang Grand coming up across the road, and we knew pretty sure that would have caused our prices to come up, and thankfully that has come into fruition. So thanks to all of that, but how did we, in retrospect, take this really good move? I feel it was because we really explored our options. We really sat down and think through on what are actual needs and what are wants. We don't make do, so we agreed that, okay, let's take this interim step. Since we expect Esperina to still continue to make money if we hold it, it can still fit your family's needs and requirements for the next 3 to 5 years. Let's do the decoupling, come out, see whether the second name can make money or not, right? And thankfully we also have done well over there. So next up, right, once Affinity hits its TOP or we cross the SSD period, we are looking to liquidate that and really then go out and look for a property that can meet their wants. So this is the thing, can meet their wants, right, and not make do, right? I do understand that, there will never be the real perfect one, but would that put them in a happier place than they were assuming they had just sold and go to Canberra? I believe so. So at the end of the day, is do we get ourselves to a happier position in between making all those money? Because of course some of you do come to us and say, "Hiya, all you agents keep focusing saying we have to make money, capital appreciation," and some people just get so sick of it, right? It's not about capital appreciation. I just want to be happy. But then there's actually a deeper question to that. Will you be happier if we just, think through it properly, take an interim step in between and get you to that happy place 5 years from now, 6, 7, 8 years from now, versus just going there and then asking also a deep question: will you be truly happy if you just taken that move? Okay. What's point number 2? Right, have a valid reason for waiting. Okay, so for this particular point, we didn't take that action of selling immediately. Right, we decided to wait because we could see that the circumstances around their development was playing into their favor, and also by waiting is also because they wanted to build up on their income. They wanted to build up on their investments and their cash, so that we have the help of Affinity, we have the help of Esperina, and we have the help of savings coming in, and all of this together is going to get us really that better sized place in a better location 5-6 years down the road, and that's what we are waiting for. So right, why I did this session, because a lot of I get a lot of inquiries, a lot of questions as to my HDB, my EC is hitting my MOP, should I wait? My question there is, what are you waiting for? And they say, don't know, right? I wait lah, maybe the price will go up or go down, right? I don't think that's the right answer, right? You have to be very, very clear, what are you waiting for? If you are waiting, so this is also maybe another way I can angle it. So if I have my clients come to me, and I have shared this with especially first timers in the market today, yeah, if you are waiting to get a better budget, right, of course, then my question to you is, how fast can you save? How fast can you make money from your investments? That sort of thing. Can you beat the way the prices are going to go up? If you can, sure, by all means wait, because that will allow you to buy something better, something at least that will fit your needs and requirements for the next 3 to 5 years. You are not buying based off today's budget, today's needs and requirements, and then 3 to 5 years down, those needs and requirements change, and then you are stuck with that particular property that you bought just because of what it is today. Yeah, and so if you tell me you save 6 months to 1 year more, you can get that better property, I will say wait, right? And it's okay to wait then, and you have a good reason to wait. But if you are saying waiting for the sake of like, maybe the price will come up, I hope that the price will come up, then that is wrong. Another wrong reason to wait is that hoping that more options become available. Yeah, I don't think that is also a very good reason to wait. Because the thing is that, unless you are super duper specific to say, I only want to buy this particular facing, this particular stack because of my feng shui reasons, or any other particular reasons, I only want to buy this particular condo, I think that's a fair reason to wait. But we also do have people saying that, in the market now so hot, they got like no much units to buy, maybe I wait lah. So I don't think that's a good reason lah, unless you already focus in on what particularly you want to buy and you're just waiting for a unit in that particular development to come up. But then mentally you have to be prepared. If that particular development or stack or whatever is so limited in supply, and if the supply does come up, you basically have to pay whatever the seller is asking for. So you don't go and wait already. After that, you come back and say, but the asking price so high, not worth it, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. It's just to make sure that you have all this put into perspective for you, okay? Right, the importance of exploring your options in depth, right? So this course of action that we took, was it the very first one that came about? Right? Did they immediately think that I want to do decoupling and buy a new launch 1-bedroom? No. This option was perhaps, I feel, now thinking back, just now I was referring back to our planning PowerPoint. It was, I think, option 3 or 4 at that point in time when we were discussing, right? Option 3 or 4 in terms of like which one do we go for first, right? But would we have landed here had we not gone through that whole process? The answer is no. So just make sure that you at least, I think you owe it to yourself to have gone through at least 3 or 4 different kind of options before deciding on something. Yeah? Right. And be creative, okay? So why did we choose to buy Affinity of the other options available is because they want to maybe put their kids into roadside, right? Affinity is within 1 km of roadside. And you don't actually have to stay inside there to make use of the address. Their house is still under their name and they could use their house as an address to put their kids into the school. Okay, so be creative about it, right? Everybody is thinking very straight, right? I want to put my kid into that school, I need to buy a house, stay inside that location, then put a kid inside. You don't have to, right? There are other creative ways which I will not share in a public forum. Right, if you are interested, you can just text me, let me know. I can share some of the other creative methods available to you. Okay, what are some of the common concerns? Of folks hitting their MOP, right? Am I overstretching myself? Right? How do I actually go about this plan? Yes, Elvin, you say explore your options. How can I do it? How do I do it? Right? Right. A lot of them will say, I need space. Right? I only want to really do this because I need space. I want more space. Other questions: are prices too high? What is the best time? Is it really worth the while? So I think a lot of all of that 6 points, I think what I've shared in the last hour and a half have already maybe answered. Am I overstretching myself? Plan using, make sure you have reserve funds, and that will sort of really answer that question. Because if not, it will be irrational fear setting in. Just the whole fact that also a lot of people have shared that my HDB I almost fully pay already I'm going to another 50 more thousand I fully pay off the loan. Now you ask me to take up another $1.5 million loan. Are you nuts? Am I overstretching myself? Blah 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 blah, all those sort of things. So instead of just allowing all that irrational fear or all the outside noises to get to you, just sit down, hunker down, learn how to do a proper financial plan, get help to do a proper financial plan. What does it mean for me? Can I really afford it? Am I truly overstretching myself on it? Because like for me personally, I buy more and more expensive properties is also to force myself to save. Because another question sometimes I ask some HDB owners, that they fully pay off the house, that sort of thing. I don't want much stress, I don't want to overstretch myself, blah blah, that sort of thing. Then my next question is, how much cash savings that you have? Not much, So in the end, they all this extra cash, is it really put to good use? Maybe that's a question that you have to ask yourself. If you are not very good at saving cash like me, and I admit that, right, I use property as a means to force myself to save. Right? Think about it. There may be another option versus just seeing things from one angle. Right? How do I plan? Later on, I'll share that with you. Right? My last slide will be how and what makes a solid property plan. So in order for you to achieve the kind of things that my clients have achieved. Okay. So I need space. Are the prices too high? So I shared with you, right, some of the fundamentals of where the markets are headed towards. What's the fundamentals that's affecting the market? Still don't know? Later on, I also have help for you. Is it really worth the while? I think the last one is something that I cannot really. What is the best time? Number 5, I already shared with you, right? No best time. Important is you go about doing your plans, have a clear idea already. If you have to wait, have a clear reason why you are waiting. Is it really worth the while? I guess at the end of the day, this question you have to ask yourself, okay? But only ask yourself that after going through all that exercise. And don't ask yourself that exercise, ask yourself this question just because there's a lot of things involved, right? I'm a very detailed person, which is why I lay out so many things, but I hope this doesn't just scare you off with like, wow, so many things. I still need to go and read Alvin's guide. I still need to go and watch Alvin's 1 hour long video to go and learn all these things. Is it really worth the while? No. So do that whole thing already and then subsequently come back and ask yourself, if you are truly happy in your current place and you have things planned out, what does it mean for you to continue staying put, then go ahead and stay put. Okay, right. So last one, right? How to achieve clarity while approaching your MOP, right? Number 1, use the LGPS method, right? Location, growth, price, and space, right? Weigh out, right? Rank out which one is most important to you, right? Probably I'll put a link of that LGPS thing into the chat. Later on, we can put it later on, we don't have to put it now. If you don't know what this really means, can you put it in the comments and we'll send you that link for that video, how to use it. So LGPS, right? You, your spouse, sit down, weigh up which is most important for us. Location, growth, price, or size. Okay? Gain a fundamental understanding. So understand yourself. Understand yourself. Not so much understand yourself. We are not a psychology course. Understanding the market, right? How the market works. And so that, because like I said, at the end of the day, when you sell, whether or not 6 months later the price is upwards or downwards, it really depends on the market. And so you have to have sort of your own thought process, your own prediction on where the market is headed, your own sort of conviction to it. Yeah. And so at the end, at least at the end of the day, you can say, I made that decision, and I'm okay with it, right? It's not that somebody tell me after that I regret, I should have done my own research. No lah, right? I've done my own research, own due diligence. I own my decision. Okay. So number 3, right? Understand your options, right? At least have 3 options, and I'm going to help you guys, right? What are some of the options, right? What are some of the different things to think about, right? What does it mean to me if I stay put? What does it mean to me if I move up? Moving up means upgrading, like just doing a simple sell, buy into maybe a EC, or if you need space and you don't prioritize grow so much, buy into a bigger HDB. Okay. Number 3, restarting my CPF time bomb, right? So that's where it brings me to the next part of the conversation, right? This imaginary conversation that I'm having, let's say with a HDB owner. He's like, Alvin, I've already almost fully paid off my HDB already, left maybe $50,000. My next question to them is, you pay off using CPF or cash? Then they say, use CPF. I'm like, oh my god, that's not the right way to fully pay off your property, because why? You're going to go into negative sale in no time. Right? If you have fully paid off your BTO, I roughly at the top of my head, if you have fully paid off your BTO with CPF, right, I believe you may hit, if you are at of course, the $1 million BTOs aside, those that are sitting on like $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $8,000 profit one, excluded, right? Those that are sitting on $200,000, $300,000 profit, your Sengkang, Punggol, Bukit Panjang, HDBs, there is a good chance you may go into negative sale within the next 5 years if you have fully paid off using CPF. And what that means is that while mentally you are thinking that I fully paid off the day I sell my or if I don't sell right, no stress. But I'm telling you, there's no such thing forever. And especially in today's market, internal temperature too high, allow it to cool. They say internal temperature too high, allow it to cool. Yeah, I don't know how. Can y'all still hear me? I think y'all can still hear me. Pardon us, the camera is having a little bit of an issue. But let's treat this as a podcast then, okay? So just continue listen to me while Andrew figures out the camera, right? So you got to restart your CPF to avoid going to the negative sale, because if you are in a negative sale, when you sell your house, there's no cash that come out, right? Like I always say, right? Assuming everything goes well, nobody will sell their house for no good rhyme or reason. But the people that will have to sell their house before they are 55 years old is because they need the cash. And it's a real shocker when they end up not having cash come out of their house when they actually sell it. So your that 200k profit that you think you have, in the end just disappear into negative sale. Okay? So that's what I mean by restarting my CPF time bomb. Right? You can move a like for like one, because you may not have sufficient cash to go and pay CPF to say, okay, fine, right? I have used 200,000 CPF. Not everybody have 200k lying in the bank in cash to say, so that I avoid getting into negative sale. So as an alternative, and I have done this before, it's a like for like change, right? You change a forum to a forum, right? But you re-toggle the whole thing again by then lowering the amount of CPF you use, taking up a loan again, but this time around, managing your whole CPF usage better to avoid getting into a negative sale. All right. The other option, decoupling, which I shared a little bit earlier. HDB, only way to decouple HDB is to sell it, right? That loophole is closed. If you are in an EC, you can decouple. Oh, we are back. Hi. Okay, so last one, right? Rent vesting. What does rent vesting means? It's buying a place to invest, to grow your capital. So for those of you who have, for example, husband ranking growth as number one, but wife ranking size as number one, cannot seem to reconcile, right? Rent vesting is something that you can think about, right? Buying a place that you expect the price to go up, and then renting a place to meet your spatial requirements or location requirements. Very, very good option, especially if your location requirement is not extremely long term. You are telling me maybe 3 to 5 years, right? You can then opt to rent it, right? Buy a place for investment, either rent it out or sell it for capital appreciation, then rent a place to meet your spatial requirements. Increasingly popular, right? If you want to really understand how do you do that, I have my contrarian property guide. I speak about this in detail in my contrarian property strategies book. Drop me a text or put it in the comments, and we'll be happy to send that to you. Okay, and last but not least, right? What makes a solid property plan? So all those good things that happen for my clients is because we had a real solid property plan planned out, right? We weigh up all our options. We have sufficient reserve funds to give them the confidence to take action, right? Because all the planning in the world means nothing if you do not take action. And how do you then take action? Is not forcing somebody into taking action, is to offer them sufficient assurance, right? And that means sufficient reserve funds and good contingency plans. In the event one of you lose your jobs, what do we do? To both of you lose your jobs, what do we do? Okay, multiple exit strategies. So at that point in time, what can we do? So for example, my client in Esperina, we can sell Affinity, continue to stay in Esperina if we still expect Esperina prices to go, and then just go into a higher investment, higher quantum investment, just utilizing the profits that we make, rolling it in, coupling with our original down payment, just buy a higher property, higher price property. And for all you know, maybe at that point in time, with a little bit of luck and with good planning, we end up swapping that investment property and really working our way up into a property that you can actually stay inside. and then turn the Aspirina into an investment, or then cashing out, merging it together and buying that real ideal one, size, location that we have, right? Another reason why I talk about this is because a lot of you, if you were to buy a property, right, and tell yourself that you're going to lose money, and especially if your hard-earned money, it's a very hard thing to do. But if you have made profits, right, 1-2 rounds of profits, and then you tell me, say, yeah, I already done, I already made my fair share of money, right? I already make the money already. Now I really want to enjoy, right? So which is the kind of conversation that I have with like maybe people entering their retirement mindset already, late 40s to 50s. For those, maybe growth is then really not so important. And will I really push them to focus on growth? Maybe not so much. They've already flipped 1-2 times, made their fair share of money. Now, then utilize the profits they have made to then go and buy a property that, maybe will not really make so much money, but at least it will give them happiness. And then now that I feel that kind of happiness is very different from a happiness that, today you sort of like comfort yourself because it's like, it's fine, right? At least I have a big space. But then that big space is paid for with your hard-earned money. Now this big space, this nice location, right, is being paid for by profits that you make. It's two very different things. I hope you guys understand what I mean. Okay? Multiple exit strategies, and then being able to visualize the exit and accounting for CPF accrued interest. All of this we walk through with our clients on a yearly basis just to make sure we are on track to hit their property goals, their property plans, right? So again, right, some of the questions to ask ourselves, right? Number one, are you making do? Right? Please ask yourself this question: are you making do, and is there a better way to go about doing it? Right? Even if you already determine I want to upgrade that particular property you're looking at, are you making do? Okay, is there another alternative? Are there more other creative ways we can go about executing this to get us to our final end goal? Because for us, we are very clear in our final end goal, me and Elizabeth's final end goal. Now, currently, we are focusing on growth. We are looking to grow our assets to hit that ideal landed that we want to go for. A place whereby we are happy with the size, we are happy with the location. Right? If it has to be make do, then forget it. We will roll one more time. Right? If let's say, right, we have put it out there. Hopefully in 3 to 5 years we can get to that landed that we want to get to. If cannot, we'll just roll some more. Right? We just don't want to make do to buy something else. Okay? Even if end up we buy a landed in a slightly further away location, the whole plan is then to flip that out to still get us towards that angle. So at least have that angle in mind. Right? Something that makes you truly happy. Yeah? Truly happy. Not make do happy, not self-comforting sort of happy. Truly happy. Okay? So yeah, what is your angle? So there's those two things, right? Have I considered all my options, right? I have just laid out to you guys, there's like 5-6 different options that you can be thinking about, right? Have you at least thought about 3 of them? Okay? Right? Am I able to visualize my exit? Right? Because if you say, okay, I just stay here and then stay all the way, then CPF accrued interest, you enter into negative sale. Halfway through, 10 years from now, you need the house for some cash. What are your alternatives? Don't have? If don't have, or you say, or you ask, you say bo pian, or you say, die lor, then please think a little bit about it, because right, if a real solid property plan at any one point in time happen, you already know what am I going to do. If both of us lose our jobs, how long can our reserve funds last us, right? If it can last us 6-9 months, right? Okay, so 2 months to look for the job. If 2 months cannot find anything, okay, call Alvin, put up the property for sale, And when we put out the property for sale, we know very well we are not going to negative sale, so we can take out some cash. We'll use the cash to down pay a slightly smaller property, right size back. Okay. Where do we stand in 5 to 10 years time, right? Do I know what to do should things change, right? So all this is what I sort of talked about. Okay. So if any of you have any questions, now is the time to ask, because this is the end of the Facebook Live, YouTube Live. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you are approaching your MOP, before we touch on this, commercial time. If you found this sharing useful, right? For those of you who are watching the replay lah. For those of you who are watching it live, right? Just help me click like and share. Okay, for those of you who are watching the replay, if you found this video useful, please don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. If you're on YouTube live, you can also click like and subscribe and hit on the bell notification button, ding ding. Okay, and you know it's gonna help the channel out a ton, and it's also gonna help you out a ton if you watch the video. Okay, come back to the point. So all those things that I mentioned, right? I put it all down into a guide, so the ultimate guide to upgrading. We've already sent this out to those of you who indicated your interest in the event post over the last couple of weeks. We've already sent it out to you. You can take a look at it. If you have any questions, let us know, right? Else, right? We had our fundamentals to real estate webinar. Like I said, it's very, very important to at least have sort of a understanding of the market yourself. You know how to position yourself over there. You don't need to be an expert, right? Just some of the rough fundamentals. Again, right, to give you the kind of confidence to take action. All right. You're not going to become a expert overnight or in 90 minutes lah, huh? But you know, I have this all recorded up, right? I'm don't really have the time to do that every month anymore lah. So I have all this recorded up, and if you like to, you know, sort of watch that recording in your own time, in your own comfort, the comfort of your own home, or similarly, right? Drop us a text, we'll send the recording over to you lah. Then you can watch it also. Okay. And yes, so like and subscribe will help us a ton, will help us out a ton, will help you as well. Cause why? Good karma. Okay, right. Q&A. Do we have questions? No? No questions for today. I'm going to just hang around for another 30 seconds in the event you have any questions. Keep them coming in. The last session we had some good questions. Let's hope today we have some questions. How many of people YouTube and Facebook?
YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah.
9 people on Facebook and 7 on YouTube.
So thank you so much for joining us, right? If you have no other questions, this is the end. If you like any of our collaterals, any of our recordings, do let us know. Happy to send it to you guys, right? Other than this, we also have the Contrarian ebook, right? Contrarian Property Strategies ebook, where I talk about reinvesting. I talk about, you know, a more unique way to look into the market. Let us know which one you would like. We're happy to send it over to you guys. And if there's no further questions, I'm super duper hungry because I was rushing to do this for you guys. No further questions. I'll see you guys next month. Bye bye. Stop streaming. Yeah, I think so. I press stop. Let me go.
Okay, so to send Josephine